Welcome everyone to our American Eurythmics virtual spring workshop. Please type into the chat where you're coming from this morning. We would love to know where you're coming from, what you teach. Tell us hi. And so this morning, I'm Sky McManus, and there's Crystal Hendricks. Hello, Crystal. And she's yes, lots of things. Okay, and thank you everyone. And I've got just a few things to get us started, and then we'll just jump right into our presenters. Okay. Just a few things when the presentations are happening. If you'll stay muted, that would be great. But then at the end of each one, there'll be a live Q&A where you can unmute, turn your camera on, ask questions, or you can type them into the chat at any point for our presenters today. Our mission at the American Eurythmics Society is to promote the use of eurythmics among music and other arts educators. The AES provides education, outreach, and engagement on a national level. Please join us for one of our summer workshops. If you have not been to one, you want to go this summer. If you have been to one, will you type that into the chat and tell us which one you went to, and if you want to give a comment about that, that would be great. The summer workshops are really nice. They're a week long, 1 week, super fun, and no homework. You enjoy and experience and learn all day, and then when you go home, you can just process, relax, and think about it, or do whatever you want with your time, instead of feeling like you have to be up all night doing various homework things. So please join us for a summer workshop this year. If you are not a member of AES, come on down. We would love to have you as our member. Here's our membership points and also our member benefits, lesson plans by Eurythmics and Dalcroze and different concepts related to that. There's video demonstrations of how to teach those. There's a recording list to help you know which tempos, which recordings go with what kinds of activities. I find that to be incredibly useful. And bibliography as well. Please join us for, I skipped it, but I'll just talk about it. Our fall national conference. Do not miss it. Registration is open right now. It is October 11th and 12th at the University of Lexington in Lexington, Kentucky. And you want to be there for this like whirlwind of Eurythmics activities. Friday night, Saturday, it's fun, movement the whole time. It's a wonderful 2-day just like immersion, and please join us for that. Like I said, registration is already open. You can do it right now or right after this is over. Go for it. Today's schedule, in just a moment, it'll be Alex Port, and then we'll have Clinton Pratt. His is pre-recorded, but he's going to hop in for the live Q&A. So he'll be here a little bit to answer your questions about his presentation, a quick break, and then we'll wrap it up with Dr. Jason Jones, and I'll give a few final comments. Okay. All right. So now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Alex Port. He teaches 8th through 12th grade choir and 5th grade general music at Harper Creek Community Schools in Battle Creek, Michigan. He also works as the voice area teaching assistant at Interlochen Arts Camp in the summers. He holds a bachelor's in music ed from Miami University, master's in choral conducting from The Ohio State University, and certification in eurythmics from the American Eurythmics Society. So now, Alex, without further ado, it's time to play everyone's favorite game, using movement games to teach to sight read. And yes, if you didn't get the handout yet, it's just dropped in the chat for you, so you'll have that too. Okay, Alex, take it away.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am so honored and delighted to be here with you today. As Sky mentioned, my name is Alex Port. I teach choir and general music at Harper Creek Community Schools in Battle Creek, Michigan, where I see about 5th grade through 12th grade. My presentation entitled, "It's Time for Everyone's Favorite Game," so named because I teach high school at 8 in the morning. And so as they're all sleepy at that time, as they barely slept the night before, I have to come up with something to try and get their attention. So I usually yell out, "It's time for everyone's favorite game," and I make them answer whatever the name of the game that we're going to be playing is. And there's a little lights that go around. So the why for me, music literacy is something that I'm very passionate about, as is using movement during teaching too. As the late music education professor at Northwestern University, Stephen Demarest, said, the confidence and independence that come with developing one's personal musicianship are something that last a lifetime. It took me a while to kind of get students to buy into this. But after a recent concert, we went around and I asked students what one thing that they were thankful for knowing is, and they all were very thankful for being able to read music. As I said, it made the whole learning process go much faster and make a lot more sense to them and a lot more enjoyable too. Um, their exact words were actually, "I'm still going to complain about it, but we actually appreciate being able to do this." And then as early childhood movement researcher, Dr. Deborah Stevens Smith said, movement awakens the electrical wiring that helps the child's ability to receive new learning. So I often try to marry these two things, the music literacy component and the movement, to help teach my students to sight read. A couple of quick things to know as we are getting started. My raging imposter syndrome will make me tell you that just about all my ideas are stolen. Nothing is original. I think that's a lot of what teaching is. I've kind of taken these ideas from a lot of other people who are wiser than me and kind of put my own little personal flair on them. Learning is messy. I have some videos of my students doing some of these games later, and you're going to see them make a lot of mistakes. I think that I take great pride in the fact that my students are not afraid to screw up in front of other people. I think that's a testament to how I and they have created a space where they feel comfortable enough to fail in front of others, because I think that's where some of the real magic happens. I use movable dough and dough-based minor when I'm teaching my students, which I know both of those can be a little controversial. So I'd be happy to debate the merits of those at some point later. But just so you know, going in, that's what you'll see my students using. And you'll see in the video, these are three of my ensembles that help me demonstrate some of these reading games. They are my 8th grade choir, which is about 25 8th grade students. My varsity choir, which is about 18 high schoolers, which are mostly underclassmen, so freshmen and sophomores. And then my honors choir, which is an auditioned 15-member high school group, which is about mostly juniors and seniors, upperclassmen. So this is kind of a lot to look at upon first glance, but this is where a lot of the kind of inspiration for a lot of the games that I come up with come from. In 2001, early childhood literacy researcher Dr. Hollis Scarborough kind of developed this model of how we teach students to read. The whole idea being that reading doesn't just come from exposure, even though that's a little part of it. There are a whole bunch of different strands and skills in this rope that are all being taught concurrently, and they have to be explicitly taught. And they, as students learn, they weave together to form the rope, the tightly bound rope, which is skilled literacy. And so the ropes that Dr. Scarborough named were background knowledge, which are facts and concepts that the students already know coming in, vocabulary, so the words that they know how to define already, language structure, so if they know semantics and how to build sentence structure, verbal reasoning, that they can describe how they came to conclusion, and they know things like metaphor and simile and things like that. Literacy knowledge, which is how they know how to navigate different genres or use tables of contents and things like that as they're reading. And then the second category down here of word recognition, she named phonological awareness. So being able to understand the smallest sounds that go into speaking words. Decoding, which is the sight to sound principle of students being able to see letters and understand how they sound, or being able to see a cluster of letters and understand how those fit together to create words. And then the last one down here is sight recognition. So that's students being able to see a word and immediately being able to recognize what that word is without having to go through the whole sounding out or decoding process. So the idea is that in learning, these students all are taught these things all at the same time, and they come together, and one end becomes increasingly strategic, being able to use strategies to develop the reading. One end becomes increasingly automatic and subconscious. And as they learn to get better at those things, they learn how to be more fluent readers. Um, if anybody here listens to Chris Muntz's Choralosophy podcast, then you might have heard this episode, but he actually did a whole episode on this model where he talked about how he adapts it for being able to read music. So he went through each of these components and talked how it relates to different music skills. So for background knowledge, he called that the student's audio library. So that's the internal database that students have of sounds that they can pull from as they're trying to figure out how music sounds. For vocabulary, he talks about that being music vocabulary. Language structure, that's being able to identify form and pattern. So if they learn how to read something at the beginning of a song and it's an ABA song and it comes back at the end, they can recognize this is the same thing. I already read this. I already know how this sounds. Verbal reasoning, he called muscle coordination. So that's not being able to just know how something sounds, but also being able to coordinate the muscles in the vocal mechanism to be able to produce that sound through phonation. Literacy knowledge, he called music theory. And then the bottom half word recognition, this is kind of where my teaching of solfege comes in. For phonological awareness, he calls that audiation. I believe that's a term that comes from the Gordon, but it's that inner hearing concept, students being able to hear something in their head before they actually produce that sound. Decoding, this is something that I don't know if he calls it this, but I call it sounding out, as that kind of relates to something that students had to do when they were first learning how to read. That's the idea that if they see on a staff do, re, mi, then they know that that sounds like do, re, mi. And if they see a do to sol skip, then they know that they can go do, re, mi, fa, so, do, so, to figure out what that melodic skip would sound like. So I call that with my students sounding it out. That's a strategy that we use in class to be able to figure out what a skip would sound like. And then sight recognition, he called that being able to visually identify solfege on a staff. So they can be able to see what the solfege looks like on the staff, and then they can relate that to their inner audio library and be able to pull from that to create the sounds that are written on the staff. So that's all kind of a little bit heady stuff, but the point being that in order to be able to read, even in music, there are specific skills that have to be very actively taught and strategies that students need to be able to actively practice in order to get better at reading. This is something that I want all of my students to be able to do, especially since choir students usually get a bad rap for not being able to read music and needing to hear something plunked out on a piano first before they can reproduce it. And I tell my students all the time that my whole goal is that someday they don't need me anymore. They can pick up a piece of music and be able to read it and know what it sounds like just from their independent musicianship skills. Game on! So I have some recordings on the next few slides of my students doing a variety of these silly little games that I made up with them. And the whole idea is that we're targeting some of those skills found on the reading rope to build some of those strategies. So you'll see some of my choirs actually doing some of these games with me. So for this one, I would yell, "It's time to play everybody's favorite game," and the students would yell, "Walk the scale!" Ready, and then here we go. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. I was waiting for that big like collision in the center here. Did you end up in the same spot that you ended on? Kind of. That you started on? I'm gonna encourage you to do it one more time, and this time can you breathe into that whole space so we get a Minnesota. So before we jump into this game, I usually sing a scale with my students first, and then I have them look down at their feet and I tell them that they're standing on a spot that is do, and then all the rest of the scale is before them, in front of them, and they have to walk that as they sing, and as they move backwards, they have to try and land on the same spot. This is something that I got from Dr. Richard Schnipke at one of the conferences of his that I attended. And Minnesota fall. I don't know. Do they have a tall R in Minnesota? Ready, and here we go. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Well done. Oh, here we go. Where's Dave? Oh, there's Dave. Sophia. I don't know what I was. I know, everybody out there is like, So Sophia's gonna sweep the chicken when she sweeps. So Dave's a rubber chicken. As I have to find some way to be goofy and keep my students' attention. So I tossed a rubber chicken to somebody, and they're going to do this again, but when the rubber chicken is squeaked, they have to switch to silently walking and audiating the pitches in their head. So that when the chicken squeaks again, they have to make sure that they're coming in on the correct pitch. So you can switch to audiating. Ready, and then here we go. Do, re, ti, do, ti, la, sol, re, do. Well done, Sophia, pick a new person. Everybody else, careful that you don't go la on the way down. Audie, 1 and 2, and here we go. Do, oops. That's really tough for students doing it for the first time, especially when they have to keep it going in their heads and then come back in on the correct pitch. There's a lot of like, that happens when they have to come back in. And so the more they do it and the more they screw it up, the better they get at internalizing what they sang the first time so that they can keep it going in their heads. So the last part of this video, which we'll kind of skip for now, is I make them do it again, but I make them do it on a scale in thirds. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, so, just to up the difficulty for them a little bit because they were doing a really nice job with that. Ready. This is my 8th grade choir. You'll be able to tell because some of them are really into it and some of them are just like way too cool to be able to participate in it. But I would say it's time for everybody's favorite game, and they would say, "Dance the scale." This guy's getting into it too. So we do the same kind of thing at the beginning. We sing through the whole solfege scale. And then I start calling on students, and they come up with some kind of dance move to do on some of those scale degrees. And The whole concept is kind of the same, that we're building the students' audiation skills of being able to, um, if they're leaving out some pitches, that they can hear them in their head and then be able to come back in on the correct note. So you'll see some awesome dance moves here on some of the scale degrees that we're not going to be singing.
Emily, clap on what? Me. On me, clap, so that's 3 in a row. Ready, here we go. Do. Wait. That was a fall. You do that on fall. You whisper, you clap, and ready, my bad, here we go. Do. Well done.
So far, we have Ray, we whisper something to our neighbor, but we don't really whisper because if we make noise, then we're interrupting the audiation process and we're listening to what we're saying as opposed to listening to what's in our head. So we silently whisper to our neighbor on Ray, we clap on me, we roll dice on Fa.
Keep going in your mind so that way you can get all the skips correctly. Mason.
And I need to fire my student cameraman.
You know what? I'm so lame at somebody. You're so cool, Emily. You're so cool.
That's my dad.
Here we go. Go. Well done. Ready, here we
So then this round, you'll see we replaced every single one in the scale with dance moves. So the whole thing is going to be silent and us dancing through the whole thing.
I forgot what that was. Oh yeah.
No.
Everything's got in here.
And then we sing through the whole thing again. And I'm going to move on for time's sake. So, but you can see just they're pretty good at being able to come back in on what's pretty close to the next pitch. And I think at least connecting each one to a movement and forcing them to be able to have it in their head helps them to be able to keep track of where they are in the scale. It's time for everyone's favorite game, Walk the Song. So this is my varsity choir at high school, which is mostly underclassmen. You will see that before this recording started, we sang through London Bridge is Falling Down. I picked a very familiar song on purpose so that we could take that and convert it into solfege, but they would already know how that sounds. So we sang through that. I wrote the solfege on the board and then we sang through it on solfege. And then I made them actually walk it kind of like we do the scale. So I told them we're standing on sol. In front of them is la ti do. Behind them is fa mi re do. And as they sing, they have to step on all of those pitches too.
Here we go. Sol, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, re, sol, mi, do. This question goes to Keen. Ready?
I'll pause for a moment and say that at this stage, I am actually not as adamant with them about keeping a super steady beat or rhythm. You might have noticed that in the dancing of the scale too, that we spend a little longer on some pitches than others based on their dance moves. In my idea, when they're learning how to read print. At first, they go kind of slowly and they have to stop every now and again and sound out a word and figure that out. And so, in my estimation, it's a lot of it is the same for music, that we might be going along and they might have to stop and sound something out. And as they get better and better at that, then their fluency rate starts to develop too. So in the beginning, I'm not as adamant about a very steady beat and rhythm as they're learning the pitches. So here what you're going to see is we sing the song again, but we fill in where the melodic skips are. We fill in the missing solfege.
Here we go. Sol, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, mi, fa, sol, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Well done. Come on back up to sol.
My,
Here we
oops,
go.
my bad teaching habit. I need to stop singing with them and actually have them sing it by themselves. So what you'll see next, this is that sounding out strategy that I talked about before. When there's melodic skips, one strategy that they can use to figure it out is sing the in-between notes as well to figure out what the skips sound like. And so after we sing the in-between solfege, we still walk all of them, but we don't actually sing the ones that are missing from the song. So that way they then get a sense of what it feels like to have the skips in their head, or the missing notes in their head, but still being able to sing the skips successfully.
Re, mi, fa, sol, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, re, sol, mi, do. Good luck. Here.
And then, so as they get better and better, I start taking out solfege that they can sing. So we then have to sing the whole song without using the solfege sol, and they get tripped up, and it's a good laugh. It's time to play everybody's favorite game, the solfege convo. This is an idea that I kind of stole from Carol Krieger. The whole idea of sound before sight. What she does is she has kind of like improvised solfege conversations with her students. The whole idea being that we learn to talk. We learn kind of how sounds work and how talking works before we start to be able to apply that to print. And so if we can learn how to kind of improvise using solfege, then we can start to apply that to when it looks on paper too. So I have one student coming up one at a time and trying to improvise using just a couple of solfege that I've picked out. And then everybody else is either droning a tonic chord or a dominant chord. So the student who's improvising has to use notes within the dominant chord if the students are droning that, or the tonic chord if the students are droning that.
Think about what comes next when you go up to the other note. Ready, here it goes. Sounds like your heart.
So she's working through.
Yeah, that's it. That's great. Somebody else.
Kind of hard to hear, but she used like re, ti, re, re, as the students were pulsing some of the other ones. Then I have another student come down and try.
Well done.
And she did do, mi, so, mi, do. So that way they can hear from the other students what some of the notes are that they can use or have the option of using. And the whole idea being if they can start to use those out of context of reading, then they can start applying those sounds when it comes time to actually reading something. So the next step after this would be I would have them start adding some non-chord tones in when they sing. So instead of just using do, mi, sol, when we're doing a tonic chord, maybe they have to do at least one non-chord tone. Do, re, mi, sol. That would be the next extension off of that activity. Oh, this one really is everyone's favorite game, reverse sight reading. So I'm going to do with them something kind of similar to walking the scale. They're standing on do and they have the scale in front of them and behind them. I'm going to sing something. I'm going to sing some solfege and they have to silently walk what I sang. Do, re, mi, do. Do, re, do, ti, do. My camera person was being very lazy this day and decided to sit behind the piano where it was blocking stuff and far away from everybody where we can't really hear. So they're going to get fired too. Notice how do, 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 do. Show me with your hands what you ended on. Do, re, mi, re, do. So now I took the solfege out and I'm doing the patterns on a neutral syllable. Do, 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 do. And they have to walk it and figure out what I just sang. That's one of my freshman friends back there who was stomping around because I talked to them a little bit about trying to move a little bit more gracefully. And of course, he thought, I'm going to do the exact opposite and stomp everywhere. And I make them show me where they ended up or where they thought they ended up to see if they got it. I don't remember. So they weren't as successful, but I'm going to skip ahead to a little later in the video. The reason I wanted to show you this, it was kind of hard to hear, but I sang do, 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 and they walked it, and then I asked them to sing what they thought it was, and they sang do, mi, so, mi, do. And so I asked them then to, you're going to see, I'm going to ask them to walk it again and try again and see if they can figure out if it's something different, and they actually then get it correct.
Figure out from the spacing, because you walked it right. So you can figure out from the spacing of your feet. So that's how you do this. See if you can figure out from the spacing of your feet.
And so that time they get it correct. Do, re, do, ti, do. And I didn't tell them, I just had them walk it again. And they were able to figure it out just based off of that. And then with my last couple of minutes here, it's time for the macro micro game. So for this song, I have the students sing Morning Mood by Edvard Grieg. Do, 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 do.
There's two things on the screen right up there. Big beat. Ready, and here we go.
So they're walking the macro beat or the big beat with their feet. Then we do the microbeat with our hands. They always want to walk in a circle instead of walking around the room. I don't know why.
Here we go.
And then I make them do both together. Big beat in their feet and the small beat in their hands.
And here we go. Here's the second line now.
So I'm going to cut it off here so that we have enough time here for questions at the end. But the game then is that I bring out that rubber chicken again, and I hand it to a student. And whenever they squeak, the students have to switch which is doing the micro beat and which one is doing the micro beat between their feet and their hands. Let's see how they do with that here at the end. I had to tell her to go a little bit slower because even I couldn't keep up with. So then they're learning kind of the rhythmic processes that go into it, including being able to feel both the big beat and the small beat, and then being able to switch off between the two as well. So just kind of in wrapping up TLDR, being able to read music and music literacy is not something that students learn just by being exposed to it. There are very specific strategies that have to be actively taught. And especially with students, being able to turn those into fun games that they like to do help. And then being able to also connect that to movement that they can do helps them to learn those skills a lot better too. There's all the people that I stole from. So I think we have a couple minutes for questions, but I just wanted to say again, thank you for having me be here and hearing what I have to say. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you, Alex. That was great. Thank you so very much. Awesome. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm getting that rubber chicken like today.
It's funny. It's funny because every time like my birthday comes or even just a holiday, the kids actually like bring me more of them. So
Nice.
I had a kid like go on a cruise and they said, "Oh, I got this for you." And it was another like rainbow multicolored like rubber chicken for us to use in class.
But I mean, isn't that fantastic that they think of you in that way? I mean, that's so amazing. I do have a couple questions that I was going to ask, but first, anybody else? I do have a question from Linda. Hello, Linda. Alex, Linda would like to know, how often do you play and do the movements change each time? I lost it. Do the
Change each time
movements change each time for the dance scale?
Yeah, so I try to do some kind of literacy-based building skill or game every single day with them. Literacy is an everyday learning process. We have to constantly practice it to get better at it. Just in order to keep them engaged with Dance the Scale, I always use their ideas for the dance movement. So it changes every single time as I'm calling on different students for different ideas, which makes it really tough when I have 3 different classes doing this in a day and I have to remember what all the moves are.
I'm sure, but they probably help you too. Thank you for that. And Gabriella, hello, Gabriella. She would like to know, how many class periods does it take to accomplish one of the elements?
It depends on the group that I'm doing it with. My honors choir is pretty advanced musically, so I can usually get through one of those things in about like 15 to 20 minutes in one class period. For my varsity choir or my 8th graders, I might have to break it into like 2 or 3 days, where first we introduce like, for example, walking the macro beat and tapping the micro beat. And then the next day we practice doing it together. And then the final day we practice doing a switch off between the two.
Okay, thank you. Yes, absolutely. We all know it depends on the class and who's in it and what's happening and all of that. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Alex?
And also how many of them are pulled out for state testing.
Okay, Alex, thank you so very much. I think people can know about that, right? State
Thank you,
testing,
everybody.
unknown field trip. Thank you, Alex, so very much. All right. And I'm sure if you have any other questions for Alex, you could put them in the chat and he can take care of those for you later. Thank you, Alex. Okay. Next up, everybody, we're going to have Clinton Pratt at his session, and he is here. Oh, yes, he's even on there. So, Clinton, you want to just say hello? Or actually, Clinton, I'm going to introduce you, and then you can introduce your recording just a minute or two. Does that sound okay? Okay, great. Okay, so Clinton Pratt, everybody, has a bachelor's and master's in piano performance and has been teaching piano for over 20 years. He is the current president of the Ohio Music Teachers Association Southwest District and owns a multi-teacher piano studio in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he loves incorporating eurythmics in both private and group lessons. He's been attending eurythmics training since 2007 and has earned his certificate. Congratulations. And so now he's going to introduce his session to you today.
Yeah, it actually doesn't need much introduction. Since it's the video, I kind of talk about it there. So enjoy. Good morning. My name is Clinton Pratt. I'm very excited to be here with you today. And as you may have heard or read, I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have a piano studio there, so I teach mostly private piano lessons. And that is what today's session is focused on as far as how I use Dalcroze Eurythmics in private piano lessons. It's called Move More Than Your Fingers. Now, some of you might not teach piano lessons. That's okay. As with many things in the Dalcroze philosophy, it's adaptable with variations and scaffolding and all of that. So use your creativity to take these ideas and adapt them to your teaching situation, whether that's another instrument besides piano or group classes or choir or orchestra. I also want to apologize. I'm sort of losing my voice, and so I apologize for the frogginess, and I'm going to try to sing as well, and that might be a little rough, so bear with me. So what we're going to do today is, it's basically two sections. One is with an elementary level piano piece and student, hypothetical and real student. And then the second part is late intermediate, hypothetical and real. When I say hypothetical, I'm going to be doing the activities with you, showing you how I do them in a lesson. And then I will actually show you video clips from real students, my actual students. So the first one, we're focusing on meter and tonic and dominant. I would like you to show me the strong beat of the music that you hear. Now you can just tap like this or tap on your lap. What I like to use in lessons are racquetballs. You can pass it to yourself or bounce on the ground. Show the strong beat or the downbeat of the music. right, good. And I hope you caught along to some of the changes. Now what we're going to do is still show me the downbeat, but then show me the other beats as well. And maybe if you can show that the strong one is strong. So like if you're tapping your lap on the strong one, and then maybe you tap other parts of your body or do some other kind of gesture. Here we go. I would say good job, but I can't see you, but I'm imagining. Yes. Okay, so you felt the strong beat and showed the other beats. Let's do a similar thing. I'm going to play something else now. Here we go. Okay, good. This time, I would like you to tap the rhythm of what I'm playing. And you can just do it like this. Here we go. And repeat. All right. And now you've probably got the hang of the tune. If you've noticed, most of the melody has the same kind of rhythm. Let's do that maybe on your lap. You can't see my lap very well, but tap on your lap or walk or step. So if you'd like to stand up, I can't really do it right here to demonstrate, but step back and forth or walk, tap your lap, something grounded down here. And then see if you can tell where the quicker notes are and do something else, some other kind of gesture. I'm doing like air quotes. That might be fun. Or like a tapping like this or something quick, something. And then there's a spot where there's a long note too. So notice where that is and show the long note. Here we go. Okay, nice. We're going to switch gears just a little bit. And with my students, we will have done a little bit of this before, so it's not brand new. But for you, I'll just summarize real quick. Don't judge me in my comfy Dalcroze clothes. Okay, so I can't really show my whole body, but basically touch your feet on 1, 1, 1, and you repeat 1, 1, 1, and then my turn 5, 5, 5. Your turn 5, 5. Good. 1, 1, 1. 5, 5, 5. Your turn. Good. And then we might do some echo games. And again, you can't see my whole body, but 1, 2, 3. Your turn. 1, 2, 3. My turn. 3, 4, 5. Your turn. 3, 4, 5. My turn. 5, 4, 3. Your turn. My turn. 3, 2, 1. Your turn. Now we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to play it on the piano, and you show me on your body. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I will play, and then you echo, showing me and saying the numbers. Your turn. 1, 2, 3. Listen. Good. Good. And again, I apologize for my voice. I can barely sing. It's very sad. How about this one? Your turn. And this one? How about this one? It's fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Now I'm going to play the music again. See if you can tell when it's 5 and when it's 1. Those are the only ones. And this is the starting note. Is this a 5 or a 1? Here we go. Could you tell when it was 5 and when it was 1? And there was also a part that went. So see if you can do the 5, the 1, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. 5, 5, 5. 1, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5. 1, 1. Yes, good. This is all of the introduction to the piece that the student is going to play, but they're hearing it and experiencing it first, the rhythm, tonic and dominant. So then we would come to the piano. Maybe I would have them try to figure out what key it's in. And then they figure out it's G. And then, oh, can you play the 5? Where's the 5 and the 1? So then they already know this part of the piece already. And then the last note. And then I would probably show them the music. They would spot those parts and then read and figure out the notes of the other parts in between. And this is just the A section of the song. But now we're going to watch a short clip of me and my student in the lesson doing basically what we just did, but I'll just show you little pieces so that you can see how it works with a real student. Let's do this where you just pass it to yourself. Okay, and listen to the music, listen for the strong beat. Do you know what I mean? Like louder one, like strong?
Yeah.
On the strong one, I want you to just put your hands on your hips. We go, da, 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 or whatever we're playing, okay?
Yeah.
But on the other beats, do something else, touch something else. Ready, go. Yeah, it's changed, right? So what are you gonna do for this one? stuff to do. Hips, something. Yeah, okay, yes, good. I'm gonna play something else, but figure out which one of these patterns it is, okay? Okay, yeah. Let's do it again. 1, ready, go. Yeah, okay, good. Let's do this.
Okay.
Tap your lap like this. Okay. Right hand. Okay. Okay. And you notice most of what I'm playing is just like this, right?
Yeah.
But then can you tell there's certain places where the notes might be faster or longer?
Yeah.
So on those, let's do something else. So we have this, okay? And then when there's quicker notes, do you remember how fast they went? Or can you sing along? Right here. Right? So do something else. So like here, or can you do something that shows that rhythm? Dun, 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 dun. Show me. Yeah, okay. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. And then there's this part where there's a longer note. Can you tell where the longer note was?
Yeah.
Where is it in the?
It's like in the.
Yeah, it's at the end. There's a long note. So do something else for the long note. And you have to show the long note. Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we did the whole thing. So most of it's like this, but then there's some quick ones, and then there's a long one at the end. 1, ready, go. Again. 1 right here. Say 1. 5. Can you change your voice? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, good. 1, 5. Good. So the beginning is what?
5, 5, 5.
Yeah, and then something else, and then
1, 1.
oh, and then
5.
yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can just do 1, 5, 5, 5. 1, 1. And then last one is
1.
yes. Okay, do as many as you can. Say the number and show me while I play. 1, ready, go. 5, 5. 1, 1. What happens right here? Yes. So start there. And here comes the end. Yay! Okay, good job. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful for you to see that. Next, we are doing a late intermediate piece. And for this one, we're focusing on phrase length and feeling a long sense of phrase. So these first activities would be a precursor to the student learning the piece at all or ever even seeing it. We would do these activities, which we're about to do together. So first, I'm going to play, and while I play, I would like you to tap a steady beat while you listen. Okay, and there are different pulses in all music, but maybe you gravitated towards this one. Instead of that one, let's do twice as long. Okay, here we go. Wrong octave. Let's go twice as long from there. If the first pulse was 1, we'll say this is 4. Dun, 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 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and show the duration. So at this point, since they're longer, you might want to stand up, move around. Show that longer pulse, the bigger pulse, which is actually the downbeat. Here we go. Let's go twice as long again. So you might think of this as 8. And maybe we might use like a stretchy. Dun, 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 or something, or feel free to take a big step, move around, but showing the crucis of the 8 beats. Basically, it's a phrase. Here we go. You kind of hear the part that's a little bit different, it's a little bit longer phrase. So I have a question for you. How many phrases is this? Hopefully you said 4. Okay, but one of them's longer. Okay, so this time, notice the number of phrases, the longer phrase as well. And this time, let's make a big gesture, expanding and contracting during the phrase, and then also breathe. And when we expand, we're actually breathing in. So we're expanding our bodies out and in, but we're breathing in and out. Might feel opposite, but it will feel natural because the expanding is what your lungs do to breathe in. So try it. Just expand your arms and your body while you breathe in. And then contract when you breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And you can feel free to move around the room. So the whole phrase is going to have an expansion and contraction. Breathe out. Okay. Here we go. Breathe in. Yes. Do you like the longer one? I love the longer one. Okay, so this is all, again, like I said, precursor to the student seeing the music or trying to play it. I just want him to hear it, feel the phrases, and then once the student can play it, we might do these activities again or variation of them. So now I'm going to show you a video clip, actually 2 video clips, and this is like before and after. The after video is after we've done this activities where he's moving and doing this while I'm playing it, and then he plays it. Okay, so you might have noticed not only did he have a good sense of phrasing, but he had other expressive things like rubato and like slowing down the end. And I think he even played it a little bit slower, feeling the music more. Anyway, there you go. I hope that was helpful and you get some ideas. Let me know if you have any questions. And thanks for being here. Take care.
Thank you, Clinton. Wow. Just beautiful. I was really surprised at that after playing. That was so awesome. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. And so if you have any questions for Clinton, you can put it in the chat or you can just unmute and ask them. Any questions? I guess my question would be, Clinton, the first student, how old was he and how long has he been having lessons?
Yes, so I think he's 11 and 2 years.
Great, thank you. And then what about the other student?
He is 17 and uh the other question is, oh, how long? He did 3 or 4 years and then quit lessons for 3 years and then started again 2 years ago. So 5 years of lessons, but he aged for 3 years in the middle of that. So,
Yeah, and I'm just glad to hear that he came back because, everyone says they're going to come back and then most students don't. So that's awesome. He was missing it. And it shows, it was beautiful playing.
yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Okay, yes, thank you. And anybody has anything else you want to comment or say about this right now? Looks like Darlene would like to know. Uh, do you do meter activities with beginners?
Yes, absolutely. Um, kind of even like what I did with him.
And then perhaps if you'd like, yeah, just give us some examples. Mm-hmm.
Um, pretty much just like I did, where I would play something and have them feel the strong beat. Um, all of it is experiencing it first, so it's not like, oh, we're gonna do 2/4 or 6/8 or whatever. It's just feeling it and yeah, having them react and feeling the pulse, and then eventually subdividing in microbeats and that. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And Linda would like to know, how long are your lessons?
Most students are 45 or 60 minutes. The younger student today, he has 45-minute lessons, and the older one is 60.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that looks like all the questions for the moment. Of course, if you have more questions for Clinton, you can put them in the chat, or you could send them to me later if you think of it, and I'll send it to him. Thank you so very much, Clinton. Everybody, we're gonna have a 8-minute break. Thank you. Yes, thank you again, Clinton, so very much. Very, very nice. 8-minute break, and then come back with us for our last session. Jason Jones, we'll see you at 8 minutes, everybody. Hello, everyone, and we're back. I know that was a quick one, so but we want to be careful of your time, and so we're going to just keep it right on rolling here. Join us back when you can. Hopefully, you're there, but if you need a little longer break, hey, take another minute or two. Okay, so now, everyone, we have with us Dr. Jason Jones, a native of the Appalachia region, is an assistant professor of music education at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. He holds a PhD in music education from Eastman School of Music, a master's from University of Texas San Antonio, master's in education from Emory and Henry College, and a Bachelor of Arts in Music Education and French from Emory and Henry College as well. He is Oak certified Kodai teacher and has extensive Dalcroze training from the American Eurythmic Society. He has experience teaching elementary general music, choir, and strings to children in urban and suburban areas, as well as conducting collegiate treble choirs. And his work has been published in the Journal of General Music Education, the book Kaleidoscope, a collection of standard-based lessons for the K-7 classroom, and by the American Eurythmic Society. Here we have Dr. Jason Jones, When I Move, You Move, Scaffolding Movement Activities for Young Musicians.
Thank you so much, Sky. It's so nice to see all of you all. I realized after I submitted my title for this, I told my spouse, and he said, "You know, that's a rap song." And I was like, I thought that sounded familiar. When I move, you move, just like that. I thought I was being very creative. So sorry for the play on hip hop here, but apparently my 90s lifestyle is coming out again. I want to thank you all so much for inviting me back here to the American Rhythmic Society Spring Workshop. And it's interesting, Sky, since I sent that bio in, I finished my certification. Woohoo! Only took me, I don't know, a long time to do. So thank you all. I've learned so much. I think that you're going to find that my session is going to be very close or going to tie in well with the other two, with Clinton Alex's. I'm just trying to share my screen real quick with you to make sure everything's up here. Okay. My PowerPoint went away. Okay. All right. Your housekeeping coming. I'm in Nashville, by the way, at the Tennessee MEA, so I'm in my hotel room. All right, so I chose this graphic for a very specific reason. To me, this represents different ways that we use movement inside of our classrooms. And I have experience with teaching children. I do specialize in elementary. I teach undergraduates now. But as part of the Early Childhood Music and Movement Association, I do a lot of work with teachers of ages 0 through 8. And so I see this, and I see that we have the uniform dancing on the left, with our folk dancing and our gestures with our lyrics. And then on the right, we have this creative movement where these different colors of dots are not just moving by themselves, but they're interacting, and they're different shapes and they're different sizes. And to me, this represents the different types of learners and abled bodies that we have inside of our spaces. But I have to start with the song, and because I teach on the border, I teach in English and Spanish. We're going to learn a little song, and it'll tie in with what we're doing. Sing along if you know. It's called Mi Cuerpo Hace Música, and it goes like this. Mi cuerpo hace música. Mi cuerpo hace música. Mis manos hacen, mis pies hacen, mi boca hace la la la. Mi cuerpo hace cha cha cha. This time I'm going to sing, and can you hear the song in your head and do the movements with me? Here we go, mi cuerpo hace música. Mi cuerpo hace música. Mis manos hacen, mis pies hacen, mi boca hace la la la. Mi cuerpo hace cha cha cha, cha cha cha, cha cha cha. I love this one. Our bodies make music. Our bodies make music. My hands make music. My feet make music. My mouth makes music. And my body does the cha-cha-cha. One more song that I'm going to use to reference inside of here. It goes like this. Can you keep the pulse anywhere that you like, on your nose, in your eyes, in your eyebrows, wherever is comfortable for you. Okay, it goes like this. Ba-dum, ba, ba, ba-da, ba-dum, ba, ba, ba-da, ba, ba, ba-da. Hey, what do you say? Let's all move my way. Ba-dum, ba, ba, ba-da, ba-dum, ba, ba, ba-da, ba-dum. Ba, 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 da, ba. Hey, what do you say? Let's all move Sky's way. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-da, ba-dum, ba-da. Hey, what do you say? Let's all move Linda's way. Ba-dum, ba-da, ba-dum, ba-da, ba-dum, ba-da. Hey, what do you say? You all move your way. Ba-dum, ba-dee, ba-da, da, ba-dum, ba-da, ba-da. Excellent. It's such good moving. I love it when we get to move our own ways and we get to see the way that our friends move. So when I first started teaching movement, before I started studying Dalcroze, I felt like this. I first felt like I was like at a Zumba class where I was like, hands up, hands down, hands up, hands down, and up and up and up. And then I went, I need some video help. So then I turned and I thought, oh, then I started feeling like this Just Dance, right? Where we're trying to keep up with the movements and we're trying to do them. But of course, I'm a little old school, so I was thinking more about the DDR, right? Getting their feet right, right on that pulse, right on that rhythm, and trying to get it perfect every time. But it just wasn't successful. It just wasn't good for me. And it just wasn't musical. And so I thought, well, let's have the mirror. And in my mind, this is how it was supposed to go. I do the modeling of the mirroring. This is when I started learning Dalcroze. And the children are going to look exactly like me. Look how beautiful this is. I just knew this was the way it was going to go. But this is the way it actually was. This is the way I felt. I was like, this is not it. And they weren't learning much. And so I value mirroring, and it's part of the process here. But I thought there's got to be a better way. So I continued to study rhythmics and continue to make these wonderful mistakes. And I do call them wonderful mistakes because that's how we learn. That's how the children learn. I thought, well, let's move away from this fun mirror. But my expectations were no longer this. This wasn't the expectation because I don't want children to be me. I don't want them to be my mirror. I want them to be them. So, because this is the way they're going to look. They can't look like me, right? And especially now that I'm a disabled person, I can't look like them. They move differently. So I thought about the ways that we use movement in our classrooms, and this is just some. So I turned to the literature. The bibliographies on the American Rhythmic website is very helpful. And so I turned to the literature, and so I thought these are just some of the ways that we use movement. It doesn't have to be mine. In this presentation, because it's so short, I'm going to just kind of focus on some general things that help us with these particular ones, because these are the ones that I use with my children and now teach my undergraduates. So the first thing I learned from the literature is that there's actually lots of taxonomies for the way that we use movement. And so I thought, well, I wanted to do the group folk dancing, and it was just dismal. So I thought there's got to be a better way. And sure enough, there was. So we know from literature, and you probably know from your experiences, that we need to teach them independently. Okay, the teacher models modeling for the students when they're doing it independently. Then students practice the movement independently. So if children can't do it by themselves, it's hard for them to do it with someone else, right? It's hard for them, they're trying to worry about their own bodies developmentally. They're still trying to figure out their own bodies. So they need to be able to do the movements themselves. And this is one that I added. This one was in the literature, but modeling with a partner, the teacher models, everyone watches. So that student who's the most comfortable, or if you have an assistant, the teacher models the movement with a partner. If it's a hand game, or if it's a play party like turning the glasses over, or something like that, we model. Or the Mexican mixers, one of my favorites, modeling with a partner because it's quite hard. And then the partners practice. And that was something that I used to skip. Oh, they got it. They watch. They can see it. No. They need to practice with the partner, and the teacher needs to give feedback with that partner. The do-si-doing and the swinging, particularly for folk dancing. I had a teacher. She was at the peak of her life in the 60s and 70s, and she loved Chubby Checkers. And so she always wanted to do the twist for her shows. And so practicing with partners was very important, or Virginia Reel, that type of stuff. And then the teacher demonstrates with a small group. So it's like, okay, now that you've walked around and you've watched the partners or you've watched the small group, which ones are doing it the most accurate, right? And because this is folk dancing and choreography, we want to be uniform. So this is the visual at the very beginning, this is the left side. And there is a time and place for that, because in these, we're teaching them what I call movement repertoire or movement vocabulary, movement that they haven't had before or they haven't thought about before, right? We can't just say, do it, or I couldn't, I guess I should say. So teaching them movement vocabulary. And then finally, the group practices. And this could be weeks. And for me in my lesson plans, because I am both Dalcroze and Kodai inspired teacher, in addition to using Dalcroze in order to teach those Kodai concepts, I always had this designated spot of 15 minutes inside of my lessons that was for this movement type stuff. So we did things like folk dancing and expressive movement, etc. So being able to have this type of a movement for them to practice. So just to go back, independent by themselves, with a partner, and then with the group. That's what Pika and Bernstorff and Driver have told us, and that is the best way to do it. It's also the most developmental way, so they can get those in their body. So the one that was, I think, the hardest for me was, I love plastic anime. I love it. Ever since I saw the video of Sky doing it at my San Antonio workshop years ago, Sky, years. I can't believe how long it's been. It's been a long, almost 9 years. I just fell in love with plastic, but I thought, how do I do this? Like, I can't just say, show me the music, here, kindergarten, first grade. So I thought there's got to be a better way for it. And so Pika in 1995, and I know this research is a little old, but it's still good. They say going from being to doing to feeling. So, in other words, playing pretend. When you hear this song, I want you to pretend that you are the highest notes in the song. What are you thinking about when you're doing the highest notes? Pretend to be the highest notes. Or play a movie in your brain. What is happening in this movie? Carnival of the Animals is an excellent one to do this with because they literally are the animals. So pretend. Oh, now that we've pretended to be kangaroos and we've moved around the classroom with absolutely nothing that has to do with the music itself, now we're going to pretend to be musician kangaroos. And these kangaroos can only move when the piano is playing. As the piano plays, That's when our kangaroos do it. So you're going to do the movements as the kangaroo, tending, doing. Now, I'm going to play a new song for you. And I'm going to tell you this is called Aquarium. And what's inside of an aquarium? That's right. So now I want you to listen to the music and respond. So they've had practice already of pretending with teacher directed, right? Pretend to do this or do this. Oh, now listen to the music and do it. Now I'm applying that concept to a new song. And I like to do things also with because I'm in South Texas, I love to do like La Bequina is my favorite mariachi song. And so I like to say, oh, this one has words. What does the word say? Oh, let's do what the narrator says in here. So guiding them to do this. Ways that we can help them with this. The mirroring is here. I like to do mirroring for some things, but I really try to move away as soon as possible. Oh, nice. The orange is finished. Oh, yeah. Got to give them the way it is. Guess what the animal is based on how? Yes, perfect, Oren, perfect. Because then they're like, oh, and they have to explain. That's the feeling, right? Why did you feel that way? I love to use manipulatives. We just watched an excellent use of the elastics. I love to use scarves. And there's actually some budding research that when you give students something in their hands, the focus no longer becomes on what is my body doing, who's looking at me, but how am I using the thing that's in my hand? So I typically give them 2 scarves or a ribbon dancer or plates or something in both of their hands, because then I can say, move the scarves, especially those students that don't want to move their bodies. I mean, I don't even have to say it. I'm sure some of you will have those students that may just be reluctant. I don't know what it is about saying here's a scarf, even my 5th graders, here's a scarf, here's a ribbon dancer, or you choose scarf, plate, ribbon dancer, even a ball, like a large one. Move this, right? Move this. I've already said play pretend. That's in the literature. This next one, dim the lights, is something that I learned working in inner city San Antonio and had some resistance. Is I found that when I dimmed, not turned off, but I dimmed the lights, all of a sudden they felt more comfortable because they didn't feel like there was a spotlight. And I asked them, I said, why is it that when I dim the lights, you all have this free movement? Well, Mr. Jones, I didn't feel like anybody was looking at me. Oh, okay. So I started to dim the lights. I had one of those rooms with 2 light switches where I turn off the lights and raise the blinds. And they felt more comfortable, my older students did, doing these because they didn't feel like they were going to be made fun of. And then finally, I really like, because in plastic anime, we love to do this group stuff, but that's hard to figure out how to do with children. So I began by playing songs when they were younger and having them create the movements in the groups to negotiate those movements, to negotiate what do they hear and explain and talk and discourse. So I have a video to show you, and these are kindergartners, and I did this process with them. So I'm going to play the video so you can hear the song and see the final product, and then I will discuss how I walk through each of the steps. Oh, I need to share the sound first. Oh, I did. Okay, great. Uh-oh.
How's the weather today?
Yeah, wasn't they cute? They're such cute. They're old now. They're almost graduated high school. Um, but you can see like that wasn't necessarily an easy thing to do. Sorry for sharing the whiteboard here. That wasn't an easy thing for them to do. There was lots of movements inside of there that could be challenging, especially for kindergarten. And so the process began was as we sang the song and then we pretended. We pretended like the weather was sunny and we pretended like the weather was rainy. Then we pretended like it was snowy, which these kids have never seen snow. So I had to show videos of snow. This is in San Antonio. We had to pretend. What do we do when it's cloudy? What do we, and then we did the things. When we go outside, we play. Ooh, let's play a game. And so we played like one of those circle games. What do we do when it's rainy? Oh, we sit inside. Let's all sit inside. You can do more than sit. Let's read a book. Or let's do something that's rainy inside. What we do when it's cloudy? That's right. We celebrate in San Antonio because it's so hot. And then what do we do what do people do when it snows? Because they don't know. So we did these things. So then we said, oh, well, what type of, here's some hula hoops, which we did a lot of hula hoops as the manipulative in kindergarten. It's their personal space. They learn that so they can move around the classroom. So, what can we do with these hula hoops? What does the sun look like? Oh, and someone held up the hula hoops. Oh my gosh, what do we have when it rains? An umbrella, that's right. And what do umbrellas look? So we're walking through these questions, right? What does it look? So I'm not telling them, hold it like this, do it like this. They're deciding as a class. What about clouds? How can we make clouds with our hula hoops? Oh, and then one person was like, well, we could put them together like this. Oh, that's so smart. Let's all do that. Well, what about snow? We said we sled in the snow, we make snowmen. What can we do as a group? And they decided, oh, we'll make snowmen and stack our hula hoops. And that's this just class. This other classes, I had 5 classes, they didn't have the same motions. Some of them had sleds. Some of them had watched bobsledding in the Olympics. So they want to pretend to be bobsledders. Some of them for rain, they decided to do a group movement for that. And they had the cloud, and then students would take their fingers and move down. So while this isn't a lot of locomotor movement necessarily, you can see how we're moving from being to doing to feeling. So now, after this one with lyrics, I can go into a song without the lyrics and say, oh, the same process over again. What should we do? What does it sound like? And so this was actually, it took a few weeks to do this. We sang the song and then we pretended. But then by the time, you saw all of them. And these were their movements. So I was less concerned about them singing the song and more concerned about the movement. So I use this as a pre-plastique, if you will, root plastique, being to doing to feeling. Let's see if I can get the next slide. So along those lines, there wasn't a lot of locomotor movement for kindergarten here because we know that they're still trying to get used to their bodies. And sometimes this takes a while. So the literature says from Piaget and a little bit of Vygotsky, and bringing in some Ethel Driver. If you haven't read any Ethel Driver, she's one of the first female authors of Dalcroze. Her book was published in 1951. I highly, highly recommend trying to find it. It's out of print, but trying to find a copy of it. It's just excellent work. One of the first American authors. So one of the first Dalcroze books written in English. But they describe, we use our whole bodies, our uppers first in place. Then we sit down and use our lower body. Then we start to add our arms and our legs moving one at a time, and then our fingers and our toes. And so this is how we progress. So my students weren't quite ready to be able to be accurately expressive or express the music with their legs moving through the space, but they still got to use their arms, the high arms, the middle arms, the low arms, the coordination of putting it together, and their whole body, right? Wendy. So along those lines, we know from the literature that we go from non-locomotor, which is standing in place, and then to locomotor, which is moving throughout the space. And then we can start to combine them, moving while waving our arms, moving while showing these expressions, right? So if your students are having a hard time understanding this while they're moving, it could be because they're still focused on the locomotor and they're not quite ready to combine yet. But if you want them to have this, then you need to do this in the non-locomotor instead of trying to skip and combine this movement, the stretching, or even filling in the spaces with the clapping while walking. That's a much higher level of development for children. So what I've done is I've synthesized this research into two taxonomies, one for non-locomotor and one for locomotor, and this is on your handout. So this is the gospel according to Dr. Jones. It is not researched yet, but this is my synthesis of the literature and also based on my experience of almost 12 years now of teaching. So non-locomotor, whole body, we already described that. All right, that's upper and bottom. Then we have arms simultaneously, right? And or people talk about this when they're playing the mallets, right? Being able to play simultaneously, but it's the same thing. Putting a manipulative like a hula hoop in their hands, right, is simultaneous. Then once that can happen, I move on to arms alternating. This is where I give them the scarves, right? I give them the elastics is actually we call it alternating or separate because we are doing this, right? Those types of movements. If you're designing choreography or some type of folk dancing, this is a good way to think about it too. Then if you want something with fingers, and then there's a lot of Laban techniques out there with the flicks, right? Right. So we think about it going from center out. This is one that I typically don't have them clap the pulse. I don't know if I've seen many, and other of you can correct me on this, but I don't see many eurythmics teachers just clap the pulse. Usually there's some type of movement, or we clap the augmentation and diminution, right, of a pulse. But I see this as when we want them to clap, they need to fill the space. But when we do that, look at my fingers, right? We have to be able to use our fingers to fill that space. And so they're not quite ready for that in second grade, according to the literature. And then finally, to take that coordination, because we're going from center out, to clap the rhythm. Now down here, they could do the rhythm in their whole bodies or in their arms. But clapping is a different thing because it involves the fingers and the coordination of body and arms and fingers all at the same time. So if your students are having a hard time clapping the rhythm, it could be because they're not quite there yet in this taxonomy, and maybe you need to go down a level before they can do it. So putting it somewhere else. Okay, but then so from non-locomotor to locomotor. And this is what the literature says that I've synthesized for you. So walking that personal pulse, which is something I learned in Delcros years ago. They have a personal pulse. If they can't walk on the pulse, maybe you should question whether if it's close to their personal pulse. And David has done research on this to find the approximate, which is 120, 120-ish for their personal pulse, usually for the younger. And then as they age, it'll get a little slower. But ours, especially mine, since I use a cane, is quite slow, around 100 and 105. And that's actually quite a big difference, right? So that leads up to the orange level. So they often can walk on the pulse after they've developed enough, but they have a hard time with slow. They have a really hard time with slow. So maybe they need to do the microbeat. And I love the idea from Alex of being able to switch between those, right? Maybe able to another way to get them up to being able, or up to do the slow, because they can do those micro beats. So notice in mi cuerpo hace música, as opposed to mi cuerpo hace música. We do the micro beat. My hands go, as opposed to doing that slowness. So in that song, Mi Cuerpo, I'm testing their development. I'm testing their hands if they can clap in time, if they can clap the rhythm, if they're doing. I'm testing their feet if they're ready to move through the space. But I always know they're going to be able to do cha 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 because it's whole body. So I'm doing a little bit of testing with that song. All right, so once we're able to do that, we're able to run and then march, the bum, bum, bum. So we're able to put the weight on the right. We're able to think and feel the weight. And then comes the skip and galloping. How many of you are like, oh my God, my first graders, they can't skip? No, well, they can't. They're not ready, right? That has something to be developed. And one way to get them there is through marching because of the weight, right? So when we skip, we have this da-da, but we have to move, right? So we need to feel the la-da, that lift. But if we march first, we can talk about this weight, this feeling. And then finally, walking the slow pulse. Okay, filling in that space so they're not doing robots. I'm a robot, but they're able to fill in and they're able to use their arms because in the non-locomotor, they've already done that. So now they can add it. And finally, walk the rhythm because this takes a lot of coordination. So this is my synthesis of the literature as far as this goes. So I'm nearly out of time, but with badum, bump, bump, badum, everyone got a chance to do their own motions. Some did the pulse, some did the rhythm. They got to see each of their classmates do a different type of movement. And so we build in their movement vocabulary. So when we get to this locomotor taxonomy, they're not just walking. They're not just running, they're not just marching, but they developed this movement repertoire or movement vocabulary by seeing children, people their age do it, right? I tell the children all the time, there is no copyright. There's no trademark in this class yet. There'll come a time when I say, okay, copyright, do your own. But for a certain time, there's no copyright or trademark on these movements. So they can take them. While they are doing these movements, I'm doing them too. And it's a little bit limited now that I have my cane. So if you're a person who can't maybe move as fast, it's all right. We can still use our bodies because it doesn't always matter how we're doing it. It's that we are doing it. We're doing it with them. So this is a really quick summary of a lot of literature. I'll answer questions in just a minute. I have provided you some references. I didn't put these on the handout. I should have. So if you wanted to take a screenshot or Sky, I'm happy to remove the video and then send the PowerPoint. I can't send it with the video, but here are some references. I left out my own article. I shouldn't have done that, but I have an article called Scaffolding the Dalcroze Approach that also talks about this. But this is some of the selective repertoire literature. And I know this is older, but there's not a lot of recent things yet. I have an article in progress right now on this type of movement taxonomy. If you have any questions or want to talk about this further, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to discuss. And I'm right at my time, Sky, so I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Jason. That was awesome. Wonderful. Um, on your two taxonomies, I really appreciated that you had the non-locomotor and the locomotor, that it's important and it's not always the age of just, that's what makes Dalcroze so interesting, is it's not necessarily the age of the person, it's what movement did they come in with. So if you're new to teaching Dalcroze, you can't just jump in with maybe what you saw like Alex do with his choir, because he's been teaching them how to move, right? Since like for a while. And so you have to start from wherever the students are. So I thought those were really great. Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, you can type it in to the chat. Okay, I'll leave that there. And see if I wanted to say something else. Like I thought I had another question, but I don't remember what it was now. But yeah, that was awesome. And thank you. We've got his email, Jason's email there. And, if anyone else doesn't get the contact info for any of the presenters, we have that. So just send an email to American Eurythmics or to me, and we'll get it to you. Okay. And so just to wrap everything up, everybody, stick with me for just another moment here. Thank you to, okay, here we go. Thank you so much to our presenters one more time. Alex, Clinton, and Jason, thank you so much. We enjoyed all of them. Thank you so much for your time and energy. And I'm looking forward to your article on that, Jason. Like, yes, that's awesome. One more time, if you forgot, sign up for a summer workshop. You will love it. You will not regret that time. They are amazing. And if you're not a member yet, please join us. We would love to have you. And save the date, or actually, you can go ahead and register for our national conference. Registration opens today at University of Lexington. So please go ahead and do that. I'm going to do it today myself. And then finally, if you would like to get a certificate that you attended this conference or this workshop to say, yes, I was here for 2 hours and enjoy and had these presentations, you can send us an email and as Taylor put in here, AmericanEurythmics@gmail.com, and we can get you one of those documents so you can have documentation if you need that. Thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much for your time. Bye. And thanks, everybody. Great job.